I'll never forget the first time I shared my writing with my mother. I left the text on her computer screen, and at this point I had been writing here and there for a while, and I was excited about my newfound hobby. After discovering my love of books, middle school had become a more fascinating place, and I tore through story after story, inspired to write my own. I'll never forget as she walked outside of the bedroom, and I waited by the counter as she walked into the kitchen, her face scrunched up, her brows turned down. She looked concerned. She looked me in the eye, smiled, and said, "Why would you write about something like that?" It would be years before I shared my work with anyone again. Now, don't get me wrong, my mother's a wonderful woman. But in the years following her reaction, I did keep my creative hobbies a secret. I used a computer in the family basement and kept my stories on floppy drives. I was passionate about writing, especially about anything that involved fantasy or something of a peculiar nature. And while I wanted her encouragement and the support of my family, their disappointment and their reaction was not enough to blot out all the authors that had inspired me with their own works. The first book I ever fell in love with was Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire. I picked up the book on a fluke, but Anne Rice's mastery of scenery and the realism behind her characters really captivated me. There was so much to them, so much development, religious, emotional, relationships. I was simply amazed at how a woman could create such a well rounded, powerful human being, even though it was fictional. I wanted to be not part of her world, but I wanted to harness that creative captivity that she had trapped me in. It wasn't long before I was picking up signed copies of Anne Rice's work everywhere, and inspired first by her, with my writing skills still a secret, I applied for a small scholarship to Burlington Writers Workshop in Wilmington, North Carolina. The application asked for a small sample of my work, a short story or a collection of poems, and I didn't have either. All I had were the chapters of my novel, but determined, I sent in the first chapter of my gruesome little romantic tale at the time and waited. Much to my surprise, I received the full scholarship. While the rest of my family took that opportunity to go down to the beach, I delved into each workshop I could get my hands on. I ate up the advice of many authors there and made wonderful friends. The following year, I had the honor of receiving the scholarship yet again, and this time without an entry. The head of the workshop had validated me. The faith I had once had in my work was renewed, and I was suddenly in a burst of creativity. After the workshops, I discovered Mary Shelley and her book, Frankenstein. Often the victim of a love-struck heart myself, I connected with the love that I found in Shelley's words as she described Dr. Frankenstein's plight and the birth of this mysterious but deadly creature. It quickly became another of my favorite classic, honestly, and another example of women in writing, describing these most haunting, beautiful human monsters that I had come to love. My encouragement in myself and my writing went up and down through high school. And in the moments when I felt the most discouraged, I'm happy to say that I found my third and probably my most influential source of inspiration. Marcus Zukas, from Australia, wrote the book The Book Thief. It's a Holocaust piece written from the point of view of death, and I found it inspiring and amazing. Again, you had that central character that had that theme of being dark and dreary, but you were seeing it through a new perspective. The idea that death could be humanized was astounding to me. And even more so, what I found even more powerful was what I found here recently, a TED Talk given by Marcus in 2014 in Sydney, Australia, where he talks about his failure. I related to him. I thought back on the moments when my mother had, unknowingly discouraged me, and thought back on the times that I thought I had failed, rewriting stories 500 times and, I must have killed like the entire rainforest by now. But in Marcus's speech, he talks about how those failures are what empowered him to write The Book Thief. He says that when he started writing it, he thought to himself, no one's ever going to read this. And that gave him the courage to set out and write the book the way he wanted to. I'm happy to say that yes, I'm still writing, and I do look forward to using my creative skill sets in the workforce. Whether I publish the next great American novel, or whether I spend my time behind a computer screen working on graphic designs, I'm happy to say that I have that choice because of the inspiration that these three people gave me. I'd like to say that my family gave me all the encouragement that I needed in life, but inspiration comes from different sources, and it's different for everybody. All I can say is that I'm happy who I am today and where I am today.